Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live episode of the Alex Nitzberg Show. I'm Alex Nitzberg, and today I'm actually going to be talking about a little bit of political news, but also I'm just going to be talking about some this overarching theme of truth versus lies. And the things I'm going to be talking about a little bit are evolutionary theory, this idea that the Earth is millions of years old, climate change, and that sort of stuff. So thank you for watching this episode. If you're enjoying these episodes, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And also follow me over on Twitter. So let me switch over to my other thing here. There's your reminder to please give this a thumbs up if you've been enjoying these episodes. So, normally I just do news and politics and stuff like that. But I'm going to talk about something a little bit different here. A lot of people, including a lot of Republican, conservative type people probably, believe that the Earth is millions, or actually I should say billions, actually billions of years old. That's what they teach. The universe and the Earth are billions of years old, and that, here's the thing. And I'm going to be making a case from the Bible, and also just kind of just out of logic and common sense here. But if you think about things like this, for instance, look how intricate the world is, the universe is, everything. If you took a box and you put all the components of a wristwatch in it, and you shook it around for infinity. I mean, you could just shake that box around, and all the parts you need to make a beautiful, Rolex, whatever, just say a wristwatch are in there. You could shake it and shake it and shake it, and you would never get a wristwatch. Why? Because it's ridiculous. I mean, you can't, and I'm going to explain why this analogy doesn't even work anyway, but let me just continue with this. A wristwatch is not as complicated as the universe. I think most people would agree with that. It's somewhat complicated, but it's not as complicated as the universe. And if you put all the components in a box, you're not going to get a wristwatch by putting it in a box and randomly shaking it around. If you pay attention, the universe trends towards chaos, towards entropy. You don't get a complex, organized system out of nothing. There are so many problems with evolutionary theory and just the sort of humanist, atheist rejecting the idea of God creating the world. There's so many problems. Okay, you've got one problem. Is, like I was saying, the order from chaos, which is completely ridiculous. Nobody looks at an airplane and goes, wow, that must have spontaneously just created itself out of nothing. But forget that. Forget the order. Where did the components come from? In that analogy I'm giving you with the watch, someone created all the components knowing that those components go together to create a wristwatch, but instead they just stuck them all in the box. Where did the box come from? Where did the components come from? Who's shaking the box around? I mean, so even that analogy is not really great, but the point, it's just proving the point that people would think it's stupid to say you could put a wristwatch components in a box and shake it around, and then poof, eventually after millions of years of doing that, random processes would just so happen that the pieces went together in just the right way to create a functioning wristwatch. That wouldn't happen. But when you're talking about the universe, you can start with the fundamental aspects of where did matter come from? Where did as they would say, the elements that make up the universe, people talk about like a Big Bang and that sort of thing. Where did everything come from? It doesn't even make sense that order could come from chaos, but it also doesn't make sense that something could come from nothing. In no other part of life do people just expect something to come from nothing. But when it comes to the fundamental question of the origin of the universe and everything, people think that everything came out of nothing and that order came from chaos. It's completely preposterous. Let me just show you. Obviously right there, it comes down to the very first words of the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, right there. Also, I just want to show you Psalm 14:1. The fool hath said in his heart, there is no God. So, I mean, there you have it right there. In order to just say that you're just going to reject God and that God did not create everything, it's a foolish thing to do. I mean, nobody looks at something else and thinks, wow, that road, that airplane, that shirt, whatever. There's nothing you look at in the world and you're just like, wow, that probably just came out of nothing. But people look at the entire universe as a whole. They wouldn't look at a shirt, or they wouldn't look at a lamp, or they wouldn't look at a house and say that probably came out of nothing. But they look at the entire universe and they're okay with just kind of this, it probably just randomly formed through natural processes, even though we don't actually know where the matter and the components in the first place came from. Psalm 19 says, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Also, along these lines, while I'm talking about creationism versus evolution and stuff, oh, and I forgot to mention, when I was talking about the billions and millions of years, when you look through the biblical genealogies, there's not room in there for billions and millions of years. So, I would be what you would call a young Earth creationist. When you go through the genealogies and stuff, there's not room in there for that. Also, some people who are, Christians might accept the idea of evolution in billions of years and try and kind of put that in with the Bible. That doesn't really work either. I think one of the main problems with that is if you just read the book of Genesis, read the creation account, obviously it says that God created everything in a week, or really I guess it would be 6 days, and he rested on the seventh day. And so if you take the Bible at face value, then that doesn't work. The Big Bang, that talks about like this Big Bang and stuff. Well, if you read the Bible, there were 6 distinct days, and God created this on one day, this on one day. That's not a Big Bang. So anyway, people try to fit the secular idea of origins and stuff into the Bible sometimes, and I think that's a bad way to go. If you're a Christian, you should just take God at his word. But also, when it comes to climate change, okay, if you're a Christian, you know that's not the way the world's going to end, so therefore this catastrophic, alarmist climate change stuff, oh my gosh, we're going to boil ourselves to death and the world's going to burn, well, that's not how the world's going to end, according to God's word. But even if you're not a Christian, you can just look at the fact that they're constantly coming up with these world-ending predictions and nothing ever happens. And just the idea that we're going to change the weather, we need to stop doing this because the weather's getting worse and all this stuff, the whole thing's ridiculous. But from a Christian perspective, it's ridiculous. And you can look at stuff like, you want to talk about, global warming or whatever. If you look at this verse here, this is 2 Peter 3:10. It says, "But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up." Okay, so there's global warming I can get behind. This idea that humans are emitting too much CO2 or whatever, different, as they call them, greenhouse gases, and that we need to complete that whole thing I reject. So that's a lie. So when I say truth versus lies, there are these just super prominent, prevalent worldviews, or what would you call them? Just basically ideas. Climate change, evolutionary theory, billions of years. And these are things that not just liberals, but a lot of conservatives and Republicans believe in. And they're lies. I mean, they're completely, they're not only not true, they're ridiculous. They're completely preposterous. And as I showed you in that one Bible verse, it says, "The fool has said in his heart, there's no God." This is foolish. It's foolishness. And those are just some of the lies that are just kind of prominent that are, and when I say lie, I don't mean that people that believe them necessarily are trying to be deceptive. I believe that they themselves are deceived. I think people that believe that, it's not like they're going around saying they believe in climate change and they believe in billions of years because they actually don't. They're lying to people. They are deceived themselves and they believe that too. But those are some issues that are important issues. They're not directly tied to like news and stuff, although you could, because I mean, a lot of times when you see news articles, they'll talk about billions of years. You watch documentaries, billions of years, and all this stuff, and that's not biblical. It's not accurate. It's not true. One other thing I was going to mention, and then this is something that people on the right don't have a problem with this as much. The idea that of transgenderism, of men, can identify, maybe they're biologically a man, but they identify as the gender of a woman and vice versa. That is something that the right politically does not have a problem with. Christians don't have a problem with. That seems to be, more of a fringe thing in the sense that I think you can find a lot of Republicans and conservatives who believe in evolution and believe in global warming kind of stuff, but you're not going to find as many that believe in this stuff. But it is another thing that's a lie that is widespread, in fact, in that it is accepted widely by many people, and it's a complete preposterous, ridiculous lie. Obviously, that is not the case. The whole idea that you can have a different gender identity than your biological sex is a completely made-up, preposterous notion. So I don't need to spend a lot of time on that. I think everybody gets that. This other stuff is stuff that people don't necessarily get. And like I said, this whole like sort of random processes creating order stuff is ridiculous when it comes to the universe. And I'm talking about the universe. You can talk about little specific things. Like instead of talking about the whole universe, which is obviously extremely complex, you could talk about just the Earth and how, amazingly, and I'm saying that sarcastically, it supports life. And amazingly, it has everything that we need to survive and everything, the resources and the temperatures and everything. But you can go really granular and look into molecules and atoms. I mean, at every level of creation, things are very orderly. And nobody in normal life goes around and finds something orderly and something obviously created and thinks that it was just randomly just popped up. Like, wow, that car must have just come out of the goo. Like, that's ridiculous. So anyway, let me move on to some actual political and news stuff here. Lindsey Graham. And if you started booing when I said that name, you're going to enjoy what I have coming up here. But no, Lindsey Graham, the senator from South Carolina, he's actually a Republican. He tweeted recently and said, "I will be working with Republicans and Democrats in the Senate to pass a resolution urging the admission of Ukraine into NATO. The best way to prevent future wars and promote peace is to create security guarantees that make aggressor nations think twice about starting wars. Ukrainian NATO membership is vital to the future security of Europe and the world. I believe there's an overwhelming majority of senators supporting this proposition." Well, I'll tell you one senator who's not supporting that proposition. That would be Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky, who said, "Absolutely not. This is exactly wrong, as usual, and could very well lead us to war with Russia, something no one should want." I thought that was kind of funny that he's saying wrong, as usual. And also, another Kentucky lawmaker, this is Representative Thomas Massey from Kentucky, he said expansion of NATO, a Cold War relic, led to the rise of Putin, also a Cold War relic, culminating in their invasion of Ukraine. Expanding NATO further is not in the interest of U.S. citizens. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think about this idea of adding Ukraine into NATO? What do you even think about NATO? I'm more of an isolationist, personally. I kind of think that the United States should kind of keep to itself, not worry so much about what's going on in the rest of the world, and worry about protecting our sovereignty, our borders, the parts of the world that we control, and not try to have bases all over the place and be involved in wars all over the place and try and expand our influence all over the place so much. I know there are good conservatives who probably disagree with that. They have more of a hawkish view. They would like to have military bases in different parts of the world and, have U.S. influence in different parts of the world. And there are arguments in favor of that. But I'm more of an isolationist, personally. I would say just forget the rest of the world to the extent that we have really strong national defense in the U.S. Maybe you could talk me into a few foreign bases for the purposes of national security. But generally speaking, I would say just have really strong defenses in the U.S., in different parts of the U.S., including Hawaii and stuff like that. And make it so that we're very strong and that people are deterred from messing with us because we're, peace through strength. And don't be spreading our tentacles all over the place and doing all this stuff all over the place. Obviously, what's going on in Ukraine is very tragic. I mean, the people there are being attacked by Russia, and that's bad and stuff. But us bringing them, us even being in NATO, to me doesn't seem like a good plan, because us having this situation where we can get drawn into a war because another country gets attacked, I don't really see that as a good plan. And like I said, there are people that very much disagree with that. Let me know what you think in the comments below. But so I want to show you this. It's kind of funny. Trump had this rally, and it says here, Pickens, South Carolina. I think it says stream July 1st, so I guess this was July 1st. And they had South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham come up. And listen to this crowd jeering him, booing him as he comes up. And there was quite a lot of booing. Beginning at the speech, there was booing. I believe there was booing at the end of the speech, and I think there was some booing during the speech. But listen to this.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome United States Senator Lindsey Graham.
Thank y'all.
We're giving them thumbs down.
Welcome to Pickens. Thank y'all for coming. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank y'all. Thank you all for coming. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a bunch. Well, you want to find something in common? All right. Thank y'all. Thank you all very much. Welcome to Pickens County. A little bit about this county. Just calm down.
All right, you get the idea. I mean, that's awkward. He's up there trying to get his speech rolling, and everybody's like, boo! Anyway, yeah, so that happened. Also, I was going to show you this clip of Mike Pence, since I'm on the topic of Ukraine. Former Vice President Mike Pence talking about that issue. He was asked if he would support adding Ukraine into NATO, and I believe what he said there is basically like after the war has been settled, he sounded like he was in favor of that, adding them in there. And he really thinks that it's important that the U.S. Continue supplying assistance to Ukraine. A lot of conservatives don't agree with that. But listen to what he had to say here. And obviously he's running for president. He's not doing great, in the polls, because obviously Trump's creaming everybody and DeSantis is in second place. And I think Pence might be in third. But basically, I mean, everybody behind DeSantis is not doing well. And DeSantis is doing well compared to them, but not compared to Trump. But anyway, here's what he had to say.
You did just make this trip to Ukraine.
Whoops, I had that. Hold on a second. I had that on double speed. Also, yeah, he did. Pence just went to Ukraine recently.
You did just make this trip to Ukraine. You were the only Republican presidential candidate to have done so, and you met with President Zelensky. He is being very clear that when NATO leaders meet this month, he expects clear steps and an invitation to join the Western military alliance. If you were president, would you make that pledge to a country that's currently at war with Russia?
I'm someone that believes that it's absolutely essential that the United States continue to provide military support to the Ukrainian military to push back on Russian aggression. Because if Russia were able to overrun Ukraine, I think it would not be long before Vladimir Putin ordered his troops across the border that under NATO we would be required to send men and women in uniform. It is not in our interest to send American forces into Ukraine, and I would never support it. And as I met with President Zelensky, he made it clear that he's not looking for that. And I have reason to believe, Margaret, that when NATO meets in a few weeks in Vilnius, that President Zelensky would be open to a conditional invitation to membership in NATO, namely saying that Ukraine will be a member of NATO once the war is over, once the war is won. I mean, I really do believe it's essential that America continue to lead, that our allies provide Ukraine with the support they need.
Okay, so yeah, so he's very much in favor of the U.S. supporting the Ukraine stuff. Also, one more thing before I go that I forgot to talk about back when I was talking about climate change, and you know how that was one of the lies I was talking about, one of the things that's just not true that a lot of people believe. I wanted to mention on the topic of climate change that hold on a second. There we go. Yeah, so on the topic of climate change, and let me just go back to my windmill photo there. When people who are promoting this climate change narrative are trying to force, through government or whatever, through industry, people are trying to push this green energy agenda and stuff like that. That is very problematic because in a free market, there would be abundant, probably low-cost energy. And that's what we want. Obviously, we want clean energy in the sense that we don't want smog in our cities and we don't want horrible quality air. But we also don't want intermittent energy that's not consistent, and we don't want high-cost energy, and we certainly don't want government, coming into the private sector and forcing people to do certain things, whatever. When the government starts getting involved in stuff gets more expensive usually. So poor people are going to be hurt everyone's going to be hurt by higher costs of energy, but obviously if you're poor and your energy costs go up, well, that's going to hurt you more than a rich guy whose energy costs go up because he can just take it. He's got lots of disposable income. So there are a lot of problems, I guess, tangentially when you start out with the big lie, we'll say, with climate change. All right, so there's lie number one. But then that lie causes all these other problems because people are pursuing this climate change related agenda, and that's hurting people in other ways. So it's bad. I mean, it's bad. It's hurting people because of the cost, because of the maybe not whatever, like if it's like less consistent, whatever, it's like not good. And if we were just pursuing what is the best energy, what is the cheapest energy, what is the cleanest, or, combine all of it, what's the cleanest, best, cheapest energy, instead of constantly worrying about how much carbon there is or how much methane there is and whether the cows are farting and all these ridiculous things that go into it, it all starts with this ridiculous lie about climate change. And, the idea that we need to do something different or else the world is going to be destroyed or be harmed in some way. instead of just starting with, like I said at the beginning, and that God created the world, he created it for us to live in. It's going to end when he says it's time for it to end, basically. I mean, it's not going to end because we messed up the environment. Now, obviously, you can mess up the environment. I mean, if we had a nuclear war, then yeah, we're going to have a horrible environment across large swaths of the world. I'm not saying that we don't have any impact on the environment, but what I am saying is this idea that, that this whole climate change stuff is ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, we have an impact on the environment, but to what extent? Is it if we all drive too many cars that, there's going to be too much carbon and everything's going to go awry? So no. So anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you guys for watching this episode. If you enjoyed this, please come back next week because I've been doing these episodes around 3:30 on Saturdays. Last week I was later than that, and this week I started maybe at 3:35. I was a little bit late, but around 3:30 on Saturdays. So if you're enjoying these, please give it a thumbs up, and please tune in next week. And also, please subscribe to me on Twitter. I got that up here. I do tweet out articles and different things. Sometimes I tweet stuff, during the week. So, and I write articles for The Blaze, and I tweet them out sometimes and stuff like that. So, check that out if you're on Twitter. And thank you for watching this episode. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.